Now, it's very easy to fall into the trap of looking for more and more apps to add to your phone to track data on your habits, your exercise, and pretty much anything that you want to do. Not only is this an expensive way to do it, it actually misses something that I think you might find helpful. And for those of you who are writing a journal, this might be the answer to you saving a little bit of money. Now, one of my favourite questions to ask is, how did we do this before the digital explosion? So pretty much before 2007 when the iPhone came out and 2009 when Android started coming out. How did we track data on our habits and stuff like that then? And then I started to think, well, actually we used to just write it in a notebook. We used to have notebooks all over the place and we'd keep it in our diary or we'd keep it in a special habit tracking notebook. And that's the way that we used to do it. And I think there's something rather special about actually handwriting the numbers down. Now, for most of this year, I have moved away from using digital tools to track habits and stuff like that. Instead, what I've done is added everything to my journal. Now, this is my current journal. One of these, actually, this is a Smythson. I've been corrected. This is a Smythson. I could never say this, but this is a Smythson Portobello notebook. Now, before you start going anywhere, I strongly advise that you do not go looking at the price. It will shock you. These are super, super expensive. I bought this in the end of the year sale last year, and fortunately, there are so many pages in this. One of these will last me pretty much a whole year, so when they have the end of the year sale this year, I'll be able to pick up another one. But this is my journal, and I do believe that this is a very, very important investment in myself and in my year, and it is tremendous. And today I want to take you through what the data I collect in my journal so that you might get some ideas for yourself, particularly those of you who are handwriting a journal, because it is such a wonderful method of being able to track your data or the data that you want to track throughout the year. I just realized I just made a mistake. I have informed you that I am using a Smythson Portobello notebook, and cue all those people rushing off to Smythson's website to see how much these notebooks are. They are stupid expensive, really, really stupidly expensive. And I'm going to get loads of comments now telling me that I am stupid and I am mad. And yes, I know and I love it. Actually, on a serious point, these notebooks are well worth every single cent, penny, whatever, that I spent on it. It is an incredible notebook. For those of you in the fountain pen world, you will understand the paper in a Smythson notebook is outstanding for fountain pens. Plus, because it's such thin paper, you get a ton of pages. This is going to last me the whole year. It's one book or one journal a year. So enough of my justification. I know they are expensive. Right, so let me explain what kind of data I am collecting in this journal. Now, the first one that I am collecting is my weight. Now, about 3 years ago when I set about writing Your Time, Your Way, by the way, the audiobook has just come out. So for those of you waiting for the audiobook, you can now get it at Amazon and Audible. Just do a search for Your Time, Your Way. But anyway, as I was writing the book, I needed to add an extra 2 hours a day for writing. That meant something had to be sacrificed. So the only thing realistically I could sacrifice was my exercise. Now, I'm one of those people that if I'm not exercising sufficiently, my weight will go up. And it did. Now, my weight, ideally, I like to keep my weight between 80 and 83 kilograms. For those of you using imperial measurements, that is about 175 to 180 pounds. That's roughly the place that I like my weight to be. I feel fit, I feel healthy, I feel good at that weight. if I go above 83 kilograms or 180 pounds, I start to feel sluggish. I start to feel a little bit fatigued, a bit tired. And I notice that my procrastination levels start rising rather quickly. So it's taken me a while, but one of the things that I needed to track this year was my weight coming down. So I did, and every Wednesday morning and every Saturday morning, I take a weight reading. Now I write that in my journal at the top in a red ink, because then it stands out, but B, because I know I'm actually tracking my weight on a Saturday and a Wednesday morning, I can just go into my journal at any time and see where was I. So this morning, being a Wednesday, I took my weight, and all I needed to do was to go back to Wednesday last week to look at my weight, which was 82.4 kilograms, and today 81.9. So over the last week, I have lost half a kilogram. And this is fantastic. I am being able to track my weight. Now, the other great thing about this is I can go right back to the beginning of my journal, look at Wednesday, and I've got one here for the 23rd of April. My weight was 85.8 kilograms. So theoretically, I was almost 3 kilograms above my ideal. So between April and the end of June, because I'm recording this at the end of June, I've lost pretty much like 3 kilograms roughly. So it's a great motivator. Every week I can look back at my journal and see what my weight has done, and I can see it coming down. If it doesn't and it goes up, it tells me that I need to do either a little bit more exercise, a bit more intensity, or I need to reduce some of the things that I've been eating. So that's like the first thing that I keep a track of in my journal. Next up, ever since I went back to doing analog journaling from digital, I used to use Day One, and then about 2 or 3 years ago, I switched back to using pen and paper. I've always written down in the margin of my journal like a checklist for my morning routines. Now, I don't really need to do this. I know my morning routines by heart. I come into the office, I turn the kettle on, I make coffee, I drink lemon water, I clear my email, I should say I do my stretches, I clear my email, and then I write my journal, or the other way around. It doesn't really matter which order I do it, as long as I do each one. And after I've done them, I check them off in pencil, in my journal. Now, this is something that I just track. Now, to be honest, I don't really need to do that. It's more of a habit just to check that off, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I don't like the idea of tracking habits in an app, because the habit you're developing is checking things off in an app. It's not actually the habit that you actually want to develop. That's not the habit you're developing. You're developing that addiction and habit of checking something off in an app on your phone, which gives you the dopamine hit, which is the thing that's causing you to become addicted. I want to become a habit of doing my morning routines. It's what I do. So I do my morning routines, then I write out what I've done and check them off. What I find over the years is that I'm pretty consistent, certainly with the coffee, every morning. And that's something else that I just keep track of. Now, if you're starting out and you're wanting to develop a solid morning routine, writing down your morning routine in your journal and checking it off by pencil is giving you a record of what you have done. It's a superb way of keeping you accountable, because you can go back in your journal, you can see at specific days. There might be a Monday or a Tuesday where you're not very good with your morning routines. So you can just say, aha, I need to change something there. So that's a really good way of tracking your morning routines and developing the habit. But there's more. Now, if you've followed me for any period of time, you will know that I am a huge lover of something called Todoist. Now, Todoist is a task manager, and the way that I have it organized is I have today's objectives, today's focus, tomorrow's focus. This is my favorite section. Now, today's objectives are the 2 things I must do today. And what I do is, before I finish and close my journal in the morning, I will write out the 2 must-do tasks into my journal. Now, this isn't because I want to be reminded of them in my journal every day, but what it does do is, first of all, psychologically, it sets me up for the day, refocuses me on the two things that I really want to get done today. The second part of this is now holding me accountable, because tomorrow morning when I sit down to write my journal, the first thing I'm going to do is look at yesterday's objectives and check them off, confirming that I've done them. It's a great way to hold myself accountable as to what I am doing in my journal. So that's another one that you can use in your journal, which is why it's so useful to actually just put a margin down the side, and then you can keep any specific data that you want to keep there. But there's more. Many, many, many years ago, in the dark ages, or certainly in the black and white world, well, it wasn't quite, it was colour, I was a competitive middle distance runner. My distances were 800 and 1500 metres. I broke the 4-minute barrier for the 1500 metres, and I broke the 2-minute barrier for the 800 metres. So for those of you in the know, will know. Now, I was pretty good at it, and I enjoyed that exercise, that sport. Now, I think if I remember correctly, 1987, my mum and dad bought me a training diary from my running hero at the time, Sebastian Coe. Now, Sebastian Coe was the world 800 metres, 1500 metres, 1 mile, he had lots of world records. And I just loved him. He was my hero. I had pictures of him on my wall. I was really a dedicated athlete. But that journal, that diary, if you like, it was a book, and every day I would write out my training for that day. And I kept that book, and I've still got it. It's actually with my parents' house now, and it's lovely. Every time I go to my parents' house, I seem to always seek that book out, and I look at it and look at my training for when I was 15, 16 years old. Now, that created a habit in me, was to actually write out by hand the exercise that I do each day. Now, I've tried digital training methods. I've used Evernote, I've used Apple Notes, I've used dedicated I think it's Nike running apps and stuff. And yeah, it tracks how many kilometers or miles that I've run and stuff like that, but it never really I never felt engaged with it. But in my journal, what I do is every single day when I've done my exercise, I write again in the margin what exercise I've done that day. And I will write it into the journal, into the actual margin. Now, one of the great things, by the way, of using a fountain pen is you get to get blotches like I've done here. I think I must have written this shortly after exercising. I was still sweating. That's a story. Remember, that's a story. You don't get that in digital world. That's a story there. I was still, on Thursday the 19th of June, I was hot, sticky, and I was trying to write my exercise without wiping my face after. Because I usually write this exercise in before I take my shower. Obviously, that was a very sticky day. So that is where I actually write in the exercise that I've done. And it's a great way to go back and look at what I've done. It's superb, and it's, again, I've got a record for life here. I find with digital tools, I can use them for a little while, and then the next one comes along, and then the next one comes along. So I'm not creating any kind of history of what I've done. These journals are going to be with me for life, and they'll get handed down to my nephews and nieces. Hopefully, if not, they'll burn them. I don't care. I'm dead. Why would I worry about it? But the thing is, I am leaving something for history here. You're not doing that in the digital world. I mean, anything that was created 20 years ago is hardly going to be recoverable now. You might be lucky, but for the most part, it's probably lost somewhere on an old computer. So technology is always moving forward, but these have been around for thousands of years, and they will be around in thousands of years in the future. Who knows? You could be part of what historians are studying in the future, and they're going to know what exercise I did on Wednesday, the 25th of June, 2025. So that's just a snapshot of the data that I am collecting in my journal. But you can collect any kind of data that you want to collect in here. You probably noticed as I was flicking through the pages that I've got things like Yorkshire tea for a Yorkshire tea bag. I collect all sorts of little things and just stick them in, things that will just bring back a smile if I go through these journals in the future and look back saying, oh yeah, I managed to get Yorkshire tea in Korea, you know, something like that. It's a wonderful, wonderful way, and you've got all that data that is unique to you in one place. You can go back through the years if you do this consistently and go back and say, wow, I used to run marathons, look how I was training. You can go back and see the actual stuff that you've done that day, and I can assure you when you do that, you'll look back in a year's time and think, why was that important? I remember at the time I was stressed and anxious and worried about it, and now I look back and think, what was I thinking? Because reality sets in and you think that was just a waste of time. But the great thing about the journal is, if you're curious about what I actually write in the journal, that's more like a morning pages, if you like. I just dump whatever's in my head. If I didn't sleep well, I'll write that down. If I'm excited about something, I'll write that down. If I bought something, I'll write that in there and put my reasons for buying something. It's your journal. It doesn't matter what you actually write. It's just whatever's in here, get it on there. I love it. It's one of my favorite times of the day is just writing my journal. I just can't imagine not doing it. I'm traveling next week. It will be on the plane with me. I'll sleep at some point on the plane. When I wake up, I will pick up my pen and I will get writing. You just can't beat that sense of handwritten writing about yourself, about what your thoughts are, about what your feelings are. You can probably tell I'm excited just from this video. I strongly urge you, you don't have to go out and spend $200-300 on a journal. Oops, I probably said how much these Portobello notebooks are. You can just buy a Moleskine for about $10. You could even go something cheaper and get something for less than $5. Doesn't matter. This is such an important part of my life. I have no problem investing a lot of money in it once a year. And when I compare it to some of the apps that I do have to pay subscriptions for at the end of the year, it's probably about the same amount of money anyway. Those apps will disappear at some point in the next 20 to 30 years. This will still be with me. It will be on my bookshelf with a year which I will stick on there to tell me the year that I was doing it. So there you go. Hopefully I've justified the idea to you of getting yourself a journal, collecting the data in there, because it's always there, and you'll go back in years gone by, in the past, and you'll just say, wow, what an amazing life I was living. Now, if you want to learn more about my journaling habits and what you can write in your journal, then this video up here is the next one to watch.